I'm glad to be back home because I spent 4 hours yesterday with the mouth carpenter, and that's always fun. I was thinking it's the dentist.
A mouth carpenter.
Yeah.
That's funny.
So I was thinking today, it's kind of like the worst blind date you'd ever have because everybody's really nervous. One person really doesn't want to go, and they're like, I'm going to inflict a lot of pain on you eventually, and you're going to pay me for it. So that's how it went. But you got to do those things sometimes. Anyway, okay. We're going to do something a little different this week than last week. No more therapy this week. We're actually going to make some decisions this week, or work on making some decisions. But what I wanted to do before we do that is I want to just kind of toss an idea out for frame of reference of where we currently are in history. Because I think we are at an inflection point. And history is that way. There's often lots of inflection points in history. But I just want to kind of press pause on the one right now, give you a little tablespoon of what I see, and then sprinkle some desert pencil wisdom over the top. So I do my best to be what I call a national guy in the real estate markets. Now, am I the best national guy out there? No, I am not. But I have relationships with folks that I talk to offline, and I've known these people for quite some time. And I have local people in 5 or 6 geographic areas that go from the left coast to the right coast. So, I hear what's going on. And it's the one thing I hear about housing is there's a crisis. Okay, I hear that pretty much everywhere. Oh, housing crisis. And so this morning, and I'm up in the Northwest, I'm south of Seattle, but I'm in that part of the world right now. So I listen to media in Metro Seattle, which is very blue and very populated and all that kind of stuff. And a couple of interesting statistics about the Metro Seattle market, just again, taking a snapshot in history. So in the last year, as the measurers measure inflation, it's been about 3.2% on the national. Okay. Now, of note, that is about 1.2%, or 120 basis points is the technical term, above the Fed's target rate. Okay. So let's just pause there for a second. What does that tell us? Well, that tells us is that probably interest rates aren't going to come down especially dramatically anytime soon. Okay, because the Fed essentially has 2 big charges and then a bunch of smaller charges. And the big charges are control inflation and keep employment at a reasonable rate. Okay, they do a lot of other stuff too, and they do that by manipulating interest rates and the money supply. Those are the tools that Congress has given them to do that. And they're not hitting the target. They're not even close to it. They're off by about almost 50%, more than 50%. And in the greater Seattle area, inflation has gone up almost 5% in the last year. Now, I'm not talking about housing. I'm talking about gallon of gas, dozen of eggs, gallon of milk, just the usual I gotta live stuff. I think energy's in there somewhere. The CPI is measured by a variety of indices, and I don't trust any of them because I've been around this too long. But the point is, it's a hell of a lot more expensive to live. And one of the talking points the media loves to use is this housing thing, okay? Now, I can tell you today, and at least half of you work in the Metro Seattle market, that the more expensive houses, the higher end ones, there's a hell of a lot more of them for sale this year than there was last year. And in the aggregate, the inventory is up 88% over last year. Okay? Now, hear that in the media thinking, oh my God, the sky is falling. And what's interesting to me today, and I'm 64 years old, is I was fully invested in 2006, 2007, and then 2008 came. And I lost a lot of money. I lost millions in equity. And I lost a lot of other things too, not the least of which was my mind, almost. But that was a pretty hard time for those of us that remember. We are nowhere even in that neighborhood compared to what that thing was, thankfully. Okay? And yet, depending on the media one chooses to listen to, the sky is falling again. I'm going to pause there for a second. The only reason I bring this up is because your customers listen to those people on a more frequent basis than they listen to you or me. So we just need to kind of take pause and go, in this moment in history, this is the messaging that's being put out there. All right? So for those of you that work directly in the real estate industry, especially in the primary home market, again, I think we're at an inflection point. We've had a pretty solid run since the COVID time of it's great to be a seller. It's great to be an owner. I feel good about myself because appreciation has taken care of me, which was largely due to interest rates and somewhat due to governmental intervention, i.e. lack of supply. But I felt pretty good. And now sellers don't feel as good as they did a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. The sentiment is off. But I think, again, this is a good moment in history to remember. Roger brought up word of the day, conflict. Okay? Buyers and sellers have always had conflicting interests. That's just the way it is, people. And we want to go, oh, win-win. Yeah, bullshit. We're not going to do that today. But by their nature, buyers and sellers have conflicting interest. The market, largely due to external forces, I would argue, we'll talk about SWOT just a little bit, has really given sellers the boon that they've had. And now we're seeing a shift due to what is probably the most fundamental economic reality in economics, and that is supply and demand. Now, I'm just taking a little slice of a little pie called Seattle Metro and going, within that slice, even a littler slice, there's way more pie than there used to be. Don't want to be a pie salesman today. I'm not going to get as much for your slice of pie as you would have 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago. And that's just a market. That's the way a market works. But for every bad news, there's good news. This is what buyers have been waiting for. And we need not forget that, because markets fluctuates and markets sometimes advantage one side and sometimes they advantage the other side. Okay? But I'm listening to this guy on the media and he says, oh God, it's the end of the world. No, it's not. It's just becoming a better time to be a buyer. Now here's a very sticky ISM to remember about financial markets. I'm going to borrow the first one from the stock market, and it goes like this. The stock market goes down like an elevator, and it goes up like an escalator. So what does that mean? Well, if you look at graphs of market activity, stock markets tend to drop really fast, and then they tend to recover really slowly. But if you look at those markets historically over time, not only has the market always recovered, it has always recovered to new all-time highs. And that is in part due to inflation, okay, and the money supply and the criminals at the Fed, as I lovingly refer to them, because there's just a lot more money than there used to be, which is one of the reasons that houses are so much more expensive than they used to be. I was thinking today, my parents bought a waterfront home in 1964 in Lakewood, Washington. They bought that property for $20,000. Okay, today that property is worth about 1.8, thanks in part to the giant remodel that I did on it. But anyway, 2 notes from that. One is there's just a lot more money around today than there was 64 years ago or 62 years ago. And the other thing is, if you look at the price of that commodity and how it's outpaced salaries, it's astronomical. I mean, in 1964, he's not here, he can't corroborate it, but my dad, he was a Stanford educated executive. He probably made at that point $16,000 to $20,000 a year, which was a damn good living in 1964. Probably the equivalent of $250, $300 today. I haven't done the math, but you get my point. And yet, that commodity today would be valued at 6 times greater than the salary back then. And it's not because there's less houses for people. There's less waterfront houses. But it's because the currency is not worth as much. So it takes a lot more of the currency to buy the same thing. And that gets me back to inflation, the Fed, and so forth. Okay, don't want to get too far off the track here, all right? The last thing I want to say is this, and this is kind of a message to house salespeople. And you've probably heard this before, but I'm going to say it anyway. This is a moment in history, I think, when trying to time the market is probably a fool's errand. Because there is a correlation between stock market sentiment, buyer sentiment, and hence real estate values. And there's a disconnect with that right now because of this oil thing. And mark my words, I know I'm right. We can come back and watch the tape, whatever point in the future it is. Once this Strait of Hormuz thing gets resolved, you're going to see another explosion in wealth. It's going to happen. We are being reminded, and I was like, how old was I? 1973. I would have been 11. I remember my dad queuing up at the gas station at 5 o'clock in the morning just to get gas, just to even get it. Okay, so we've been through these times before, and we've seen how important energy is to the economy. And that was before we had these little computers that we carry on our pockets, or this thing called AI, or all the rest of the stuff that energy requires. Okay, so that's kind of the end of the moment in history. I just wanted to point those things out right now. You can pick and choose what you want, but I think if we start soothing people's concerns, that'll just kind of help everything. And I think this is a time when the world needs some concerned soothers. So carry on with your soothing messages, as it were. Okay? All right. That said, we have homework today. Okay? So let me start with this. I'm going to put the homework in the chat. And then I'm going to bust you guys out in some little groups and give you some instructions. And you're going to do your homework, and then we're going to talk about it. Let me see if I can successfully navigate this first. Because every day I do this, Zoom moves stuff around. Okay, this is a one-page PDF that will go in the handout, and I'm going to put you guys in 2 groups. So that should be available to you now. Okay, everybody got that? Okay. You can read it later. I'm going to give you about 15-ish minutes to do this in your group. So let me just give you the topical story so that you at least have that part figured out. Okay? We're going to use very generic, very simple numbers here to do this exercise. So you're working with an investor. Okay? And the investor has $100,000 in cash money that the investor wants to invest. And in the marketplace, you discover that there are 3 investments, but they all perform differently. Okay? The first one is, if you want to make a note, you can. This is an appreciation investment. And the holding period is going to be 5 years. You put down $100,000. And at the end of the 5th year, you figure it'll be worth about $161,000, give or take. Okay, some of these numbers are not exactly perfect, but they're close enough. That's investment number 1. Investment number 2, if you take your $100,000, it's going to pay you the investor, $833 a month every month for the next 5 years. And at the end of that 5th year, the investor gets back the $100,000. So if you want to make a note there, that's cash flow investment. Then we come to investment number 3. Investment number 3 is going to give you different cash flows over the holding term. The first year will throw you $3,000, second year will throw you $20,000, then $7,500, and then $10,000, and at the end it'll throw you $110,000. Okay? So it's $100,000 down. It's a 5-year hold. 3 different things these investments are going to do. Here's some assumptions you're going to make.
I missed that last one. Can you repeat that last one?
What do you mean last one? Explain the last investment.
The third investment. What was that again?
Okay, so in the third investment, you again put down $100,000, and then it gives you different cash flows every year, each of the 5 years. So the first year it'll feed you $3,000 positive, and the second year it'll feed you $20,000. In the third year it'll give you $7,500. In the fourth it'll give you $10,000, and finally give you back $110,000. So it's the same basic premise. It's a 5-year deal. Okay. Okay. So assumption number 1, no other information is needed, no other information is given, and no other information is required. Assumption number 2, don't worry about the tax stuff. Number 3, don't worry about selling costs. Okay. Number 4, the risk is about the same for all of them. And here's the important one, number 5. The investor wants you to pick the one that has the highest rate of return. Okay. Now, you might be looking at me going, yeah, whatever, dude. Here's the thing. I've taught every one of you everything you need to know to do this problem. It just may have been a while, and it may not seem so. So hopefully the collective wisdom will help. And the good news is, at the end, I'll show you how to do it. All right? Okay, so we're going to break off into some breakout rooms, give you your 15 minutes to help each other out. An HP 10B2 calculator app would be very helpful for this exercise. I know at least one person in each group will have one. And let's go to some breakout rooms.
We're at a loss as to why this took 15 minutes. Because it seems really easy and it doesn't require an HB 10B2 to figure it out.
Which makes you wonder.
What's the answer?
Well, number 1.
We're really good.
By $10,500.
Okay. So your
I
final
mean, if
answer?
we're not taking into account the advantage of having cash flow throughout the 5-year period, then it's just number 1 on straight dollars earned.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to give you the answer yet, but if you're happy with your answer, that's all that matters.
Well, we were
See
all
you
in
later.
agreement on that. So we're making coffees.
Well, that's fine. Make sure you give Debbie one. All right. I got to go to the other room. See you guys in a minute.
Okay.
How's it going?
You're right. You're right, Ralph. All right.
Well, we think there's a trick thing in here.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
Joe, we don't trust you.
Yeah. You do. Raphael was totally on you.
That's
He
great.
called it right from the beginning before we did our calculations.
He is kind of like my Obi-Wan Kenobi. So if anybody would know, it's Raphael Barta. So, okay. Well, do you guys have your answers yet? Or are you going to wait for me to lie
Well,
to you?
you know how you can be tricky, but then also discount the fact that we're thinking more creatively. But on investment number 2, you know, if you just take that $833 a month and waste it, obviously that's probably going to be the worst investment. But if you take the $833 and invest it in an interest-bearing account and the magic of compounding interest and all that, it would seem that you would have way more money, even based on investment 3, because those numbers aren't all invested at the beginning.
Kelly, he said, though, not to make extraneous assumptions.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm
You
saying.
do that for the 3,000
Yes.
or 10,000.
Thank you,
Your
Honor.
And this and that.
Exactly.
The rules on us.
We came up with 10% across the board.
Okay.
All 3 of them. Actually, number 3 is 10.01, and I think number 1 is 10.01. So actually, number 1 and number 3 are better investments by 1/100%.
And if you remember, I also said, no, we're almost perfect. They're almost close.
Yeah.
Did we lose some of our group, or you're just in our own meeting
No,
room?
it's just I think
Okay.
our own
No, I just
pocket. So
Okay.
did we get it right?
Room.
That's the question: is did we get it right?
Okay, well, I'll tell you guys what's going on because actually this is kind of funny. So I already went to the other room. And they're like, why'd you guys do this? This was so easy. Like, why did you need 15 minutes? And I go, well, because I had nothing better to do. What's the answer, Chris? And they don't have the right answer.
Did we
You
have the
guys
right
have-
answer?
You do.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah, they're all the same.
They're on the same.
And that's the Joe trickery is that it's all the same. So, well, I don't want
knew
to
it.
we're supposed to use IRR, right?
on the third one.
Oh, well, don't we use IRR on the second one too?
No.
Oh, okay. Maybe you have a different calculation thing. There. You
Well,
have
it
to show
actually
me.
will work the same way. You can. You could use IRR on all three of them actually. But the idea was, and I'll show you this. I'm only saying this because you guys got them right. The first one is appreciation. It's used
Yeah,
time
that's-
value of money. The second one is cash on cash, and the third one is IRR. So that's how I built them because that's the three legs of the stool in this does it pencil deal. So okay, well, I guess you guys are all going to get a check for $100,000 a piece. So good job. Okay. How much time do we have left? We have 28 seconds. So see you in just a minute.
So we knew the math question was just a setup for your eventual philosophical message.
We thought the same. This is teeing up the second part of our lesson.
That's right. That's right. It's
I
kind of
was trying to
funny.
figure out.
And this is true. So I've been in this office for a couple months, and this woman moved into the office next to me, and she's a therapist. And so we were talking last night, and I go, "Oh, I'm a therapist too." She goes, "Really?" I go, "Oh yeah." We were talking about video, and I go, "I'm the therapist behind the camera." So anyway, it was kind
You're a
of cute.
financial therapist.
Yes, yes, I do therapy for a variety of people. Anyway,
Intervention.
okay.
Even.
So we're going to use two spokespeople, one from each group. Chris, since you're just always quiet and such a wallflower, why don't you be the spokesperson for your group?
Well, I mean, we took it at face value, just looking at what each scenario produced, and we didn't use an HB 10B2 to figure that out. Investment 1 produced 61K. Investment 2 produced 59,980, multiplying 833 times 12 times 5. And investment 3 produced 50,500. And so by raw output alone, number 1 would win over number 3 by $10,500, which was the next closest. Now, with that caveat, we understand there could be a greater complexity here because number 1 is not cash flowing, whereas number 2 and 3 are. And that begat a broader conversation about which of those two would be better. And technically, number 3 would be better, but we mostly agreed that number 2 would actually be preferred because it's a more predictable monthly, a more predictable annual output as opposed to the fluctuations that we saw in investment 3.
How did you get $10,000 more for number 2?
No, he misspoke. He got
Yeah.
49,980. It
Yeah.
was 49,980. He just
10,500
misspoke,
more than
Kelly.
number 3. Sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
number
as I
3.
said,
Yeah.
the word of the day is conflict. So, Counselor Harada, what is your
Yes.
group's answer?
Well, our group's answer was 10% across the board. They're all even. And I believe I'm speaking for the group when I say the other group breakout should have to do a remedial training at Does It Pencil.
I was thinking like 20 push-ups, but I like what you got going.
No, I think they need to do a remedial doesn't pencil course.
Maybe we do. Please explain.
Okay, so I can do that, Chris. I can do that. All right. So here's my. Let's see if I can turn this sideways. Okay, you can see a little better now. All right. So let's do a little financial therapy. Okay. So if you remember nothing else, if you learn nothing else, if you put nothing else on my tombstone, these are the 3 words.
Does it pencil?
Nope. Right. Did he pencil?
He lost his
Okay.
pencil.
Appreciation, cash flow, and what I call the combination. By the way, Kelly, that third A in combination is probably the best A I've ever done. I've been thinking about that. Yeah. Okay. So appreciation is measured with a skill set called time value of money. Cash flow is measured with a metric called cash on cash. And this one, the combination is IRR, or internal rate of return. So the basic message, the basic sermon, the beginning and ending point of Does It Pencil is simple, just not always easy. Those are the only 3 things that any investment, anything can ever do for you. Now, I'm setting aside taxes for a minute, but that's what things do. They go up or down in value. They give you money while you hold them, or they don't, or they do a little of each. And that's it. That's all there is. I'm doing this a long time. That's all there is. That's a mindset. And that's how you have to think about this. And my encouragement is, when you're working with clients, you need to teach them this so that they understand too. I mean, the biggest problem with the client agent relationship, agency, is when the client doesn't really understand what they're trying to do. And I would argue that's true in real estate, law, accounting, many places. All anybody really wants to know is, or all they know is, they want a good deal. They just don't know what a good deal is. So in Does It Pencil, what my argument is that you're not buying the thing, you're buying what the thing is going to do for you.